Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Football Player of the Week show. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in right now. Jace Luzerne alongside Grant Shashery. And Grant, we're actually going to break down the votes once again. Second straight week, we let the people decide to vote on the Player of the Week. And once again, round of applause for y'all because that was great, guys. Over 30,000 votes, total 33,969 votes, Grant, and we did probably a couple hours less than last week
It
too.
wasn't enough. I don't care if you had to bring the little kiddies out to get the Reese's Pieces and the Snickers and the candy corn and whatever candies the kids these days like. I mean, I know I'm a pretty young guy. I'm 24. I'm not that far removed from going trick or treating on myself, but I don't know.
Are you a chocolate guy or more of a like sweet, like
I don't know.
sweet?
I like candy. Like, candy corn's a pretty good candy. I don't know why people hate on it.
Yeah.
It's always been consistent.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
really
It hits.
consistent. It doesn't melt.
Hmm.
It doesn't have any nuts or anything. It's just straight up candy. It's pretty underrated candy. The only time you really get to eat is Halloween, even though it's all year round. I mean, it's probably best to eat it at on Halloween, same day with like turkey for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
It's kind of like one of those things.
yeah. It
Pretty
really
special.
is.
Yeah,
But
reminiscing about candy
yeah,
again.
but I think the people are here are actually here for okay, who's 10, who's 9, who's 1. So we're going to get down to it. But Grant, once again, we had a lot of votes, a lot of people participate in it. We narrowed down the second straight week. We narrowed down to 10 selections, and we'll break it down. I'll briefly go over the stats, and you can break down what you thought about their performance. After that, we'll play some highlights if we have them in the background for each player. But we're going to start off with our number 10 guy, and as Thibodeau running back Trayvon Hadley from Thibodeau High School with 46 votes coming in at number 10. He ran for 208 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns in a 26-21 win over Terrebonne High School. Grant, that was a really big performance from their running back Trayvon Hadley as they played against a really good Terrebonne football team that was coming off a high the week before. How impressive was that performance? 200 yards, 2 touchdowns,
I
drive
think
number
this is
10.
one of the more shocking, I think this is one of the more shocking games of this past weekend. Not a whole lot of people expected Terrebonne to lose this game to Thibodeau. Terrebonne, they just came off a huge win against St. John. They kind of put themselves into second place in district, but this game kind of ruined the chance to be the second best team in that district. Thibodeau, has always been one of the sneakier teams in South Louisiana. I mean, there's a lot of times where either they're kind of right in between or they have the talent, and they tend to sometimes beat Honville and Dushan, who are the two power. Honville, East St. John, and Dushan were usually the powers in that district. What a terrific performance by Javon Hadley from Thibodeau. I mean, 208 yards and 2 touchdowns against a very talented Terrebonne team. He's made a lot of noise this year, and I think will continue to make noise. But I think going to Terrebonne, I think that's good. I think that loss is good for him.
Hmm.
I think it's good for him heading to playoffs. But I think it's even better that Trevon Hadley had that type of performance and that big. So shout out to Trevon.
Yeah, he kicks off our list. Not a bad way to kick off a list at number 10 or number 9. We were wondering if we were going to get 3 straight Gridiron Football Player of the Weeks in the state of Texas, and the I guess, 2 game winning streak or 2 week winning streak has been snapped as our only Texas guy in the top 10 is at number 9. As Hutto quarterback Will Hammond with 149 votes. He is actually a Texas Tech commit, and he's putting up some Texas Tech quarterback
Yeah,
numbers, especially this past week. 23 for 37, 480 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and he also ran for over 190 yards on 25 carries, had 4 more touchdowns. Usually, when you have 8 touchdowns, usually when we okay, it's a breeze walk, but it wasn't. They earned every bit of it. 66-63 win over Bryan High School. Video game numbers, we had Alex Green as our number 1 selection a couple weeks ago. So we all know Hutto can put up some points, and Will Hammond just probably a performance. If I was voting, that was definitely I would say number 1 probably this week.
yeah, this is kind of the things you kind of expect. These type of goals can be a lot of times popularity contests, unfortunately. Not saying that there's nothing wrong with people voting, but sometimes it can be. Sometimes you leave out performances like this. I mean, he had nearly 700 yards of total offense, 480 yards, like that's nearly 500 yards. He had nearly 200 yards of rushing. And the most impressive thing is he had 8 total
I
touchdowns. That's
know.
ridiculous by one player. I mean, that's what a performance by him. And then also, 60. He had to put up 66 points because the other team put up 63.
Yeah,
So
I mean, he
his
had to do
performance, his
it.
performance was what much needed for their team to pull out the victory for the Hippos of Hutto, Texas.
It wasn't one of those games. It wasn't a stat padding game. Like, okay, let's just make his numbers look
Yeah,
better. They needed 8 touchdowns. Like they needed eight
yeah.
touchdowns from him in order to win the football game. So congratulations, Will. I know the Red Raiders are really excited to get him when he
Mm-hmm.
arrives on campus. We go to another quarterback at number 8, another Division 1 quarterback commit. We go to back to Louisiana. We go to Daniel Bill from Catholic High. Get a shout out to my alma mater. But come on, guys, y'all could have done better than this. I mean, what was it, 173 votes? Y'all could have done a little bit better than this. So I'm just giving the Catholic High their credit though with Daniel Beal, a big performance, 18 for 27, 334 yards. And no, I think you count for 6 touchdowns as well in the win against Scotlandville. So big win, big performance from Daniel Bill. But Catholic High Bear comes in number 8. Catholic High guys, I want y'all to get some more votes for Daniel, but it is what it is. Daniel comes in number 8.
Famously around here, I'm not the biggest Catholic High guy.
I think he's
I've got
made it
a
known.
crap for that. But the thing is though, is that I didn't understand why there was enough people that voted for him. To be honest with you, I mean, he put up a great performance. I know it was against that Scotlandville team that has really struggled this year, but he had a great performance. I think this is probably his best performance this year because I've seen him like once. I've seen him twice this year. He's put up some decent performances, but he hasn't put up that spectacular performance. And this was his spectacular performance. And the UL commit, 337 yards. I think it was 6 touchdowns. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a great performance. And as much as Catholic was really promoting him to get this, get the player of the week for Gridiron. I mean, I think there should have been a lot more votes for him. I mean,
Yeah. There was some
and,
promotion.
and they tried. I mean, I
Yeah.
shout Catholic out. They really tried. I just didn't think their alumni and their fan base didn't really do a good job of voting. This is not. I'm not I'm not like hating on y'all. I mean, you guys got other stuff going on, but I think as much as you want to say I'm a proud Catholic High alum, it didn't really show enough voting.
Well, but still a good performance from Daniel Bill, and shout out to everybody from Catholic High that's done an excellent job and that's going out to vote.
And
So,
then also, me and Jace will be at the game tomorrow.
oh yeah, we will, both of us.
Probably the game of the week. Probably the same. Well, there's a lot of games of the week. Maybe the game of the week in Baton Rouge, but we'll both be there. We're gonna go out to see Daniel Beal go up against the Zachary Broncos, and we'll talk about that matchup in our podcast that we released later today.
Yeah, so you'll actually have the same time around the same time you'll have this out tonight, and it'll be premiered, so you'll be able to go back and watch it and go back and watch it later on. As you see, these are actually Will Hammond's highlights. So I forgot to play him at number 9, so I'm playing him in the background as we go into number 7, and that is we're showing not only the quarterback some love, we're going to show the receiver some love too, and then at number 7. We're going to go to Caleb Rayford, who is a wide receiver for Salmon High School. Actually, was at one of our camps earlier this season and earned an invitation to play in a Gridiron Football All American Bowl game. And he's been a playmaker. I mean, he showed out in the camp and was making all kinds of plays the entire camp along at North Shore. And he's had himself a good season. He had 341 votes from the Salmon crowd. So shout out to the Spartans. I know they were runner up last week with their running back. Jacoby Jefferson was number 2 last week. But Caleb, he did it in all kinds of different ways. As a wide receiver and a cornerback, had an 81-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Also had 5 catches, a buck, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also had an interception on defense. So had a kickoff return for a touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns, and an interception. Did it all. Was kind of like Travis Hunter, really,
Yeah,
for Salmon. A 49-7 win over Pearl River. Pretty impressive performance. That was kind of like a Travis Hunter type
yeah.
esque performance.
This is the second straight week I think we've had a Salmon or Player of the Week nominations. And I think Salmon is kind of one of the underrated teams in the North Shore. They got a lot of talent over there, and I probably you're probably gonna see a little bit more from them come playoff time. Obviously we don't have that much left. This is the last week of the regular season,
Right.
so hopefully we get some more Simon guys on there because they tend to make tend to have keep having these incredible performances. And a shout out to Coach Shooter
Yeah.
for really developing these guys because these guys week in and week out they tend to play their best football, and that's all because of Coach Shooter. And I think the Simon's the program to watch for years to come.
Yeah, they definitely got a lot of talent there. My dad actually, when they played, Coach Shear always gives me some hate about this as well. Some old fashioned heat about they actually played against each other
Yeah.
in a playoff game. So he said, well, if we would just got prevented the first down, we would won the
Yeah.
football game. But it is what it is. Love back and go
Also, I
talk
just want
about
to
it.
keep mentioning that that is probably one of the nicer fields in the state of Louisiana.
Oh, it's
That's
nice.
a
It's
really
clean.
nice field. That's the second weekend in a row I've said that, but every time I see it, it looks really clean.
Oh, really sharp for sure, and sharp performance too for Cale
Mm-hmm.
Brayford. We go into number six, and up next is actually Tut McLaughlin from North Webster High School. It kind of like Cale Brayford, right? He's a guy that can do it in multiple different ways. He actually threw four passes, three of them were completions for 42 yards, and threw a touchdown pass. Also had 6 carries for 77 yards and a rushing touchdown. But it's what he did on defense that puts him in that number six spot. 3 tackles and 2 pick sixes. So Xavier McLaughlin playing at North Webster, which is actually the home of Devin White. Devin White played at North Webster High School. Give a shout out to him. And coming in, good support. 383 votes coming in at number six. So Grant, what do you think about Tut? That's what they like to call him. His
Yeah, I
performance.
think the reason why we both picked this wasn't so much for his offense, but his defense. He had 2 pick sixes. That to have 2 touchdowns on both offense and defense is pretty incredible. This is already hard enough to get a touchdown on defense. So the fact that you got 2 of them is a pretty incredible performance by Mr. Tut McLaughlin.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the cherry on top that he just happened to also have 2 touchdowns on offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely helps a lot. And then we go into our top five. So our first off, I mean, the second half of that list was pretty good. So we
Mm-hmm.
go back to our
Yeah.
first half, it's going to be even more impressive. And we talk about impressive play. You're going to see it right on the screen right now, and that's Javari Singleton. You get to see him hop over a
Uh-oh.
guy. So watch this. This is Sports Center. Top 10 worthy. Here we go. Running. Whoop!
Whoa!
Oh, hurdle. Watch out.
Over his head, on his head.
Well, that was one of the 8 times that we saw Javari Singleton really get in the end zone against I
Watch
mean
your
Del
head, kid.
Char against Del Hot Char. Yeah, watch your head. And not a bad percentage throwing the ball either. 15 for 16, 187 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you saw that hurdle right there was one of his 5 touchdown runs that night. 25 carries for 220 yards. And like I said, the 5 scores. So counting for over 400 yards, 8 touchdowns. Pretty special performance by the dual threat quarterback.
Mhm. And another eight touchdown performance by a quarterback. Earlier we had Will Hammond with his 8 touchdown performance. Now we have another one. This time is more on the ground. 25 carries, 220 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's running back numbers. So the fact that he was able to do it from the quarterback position just shows you how deadly he can be from the pocket.
Oh, I mean, he really is. So, I mean, that's pretty much as good as you can play right there. You only
Mm-hmm.
have one incomplete pass, 3 touchdowns for the air, 5 on the ground. Excellent performance. Javari Singleton. Give a shout out to the Storm out there in
Mm-hmm.
Delta Charter. Now we go to number four, and perhaps one of Grant's favorite players. And I know he's pretty pumped about this as well. So we go up to number four. We're going to go to Assumption High School, and that is Reese Turner. And Reese is just an old throwback type of player, right? I mean, really good player. He's
Old
got some
throwback.
speed.
And
Yep.
he's just a baller. That's what
Yeah.
he is. I don't think he's old fat. He's just a baller. He can
hmm
do it. I mean, I've seen like his whole highlight tape. It's just like what he does with the ball is just incredible. He can go up. He can play
Taysom Hill with
quarterback,
speed.
running back, receiver. He's just a pure athlete. You give him the ball, something special is going to happen. There's not many players like that in this state that can do that. I mean, you probably like Jackson Bradley, and there's a lot of great
hmm
players who are like that, but there's not many players that like Reese Turner. And he if he was at a bigger school, he would get a lot of attention. But he's in the school like Assumption where it's kind of in the middle of the river parish. It does get a
Hmm.
lot of attention, but they got a whole lot of attention since their win over Lutcher, who was the defending state champion Division Two selected here in Louisiana. But I think if he was at like a St. Charles Catholic,
Right.
or if he was at a Catholic here right here in Baton Rouge, if he's at Brother Martin,
Yeah.
he's
Right.
at a bigger school in Louisiana, he would be getting a lot more pub because this man is one of the most athletic players right now playing high school football in Louisiana.
And the reason why he's number four is because he helped his team win the district championship, and he did it against Vanderbilt Catholic, was also a great team in that area. Reese completed four passes, but for 185 yards, so
Yeah.
a lot of yards per attempt there, two touchdowns, but it's what he does as a runner that really really separates himself from the pack. 15 carries, 230 yards, and two touchdowns. So a four touchdown performance in a game which they need him to have a really
And
good
I just want to say
performance.
one last thing about Reese Turner is that I've always kind of been watching him, because he seemed to be putting some gaudy numbers,
Hmm.
and then he started giving me his stats,
Yep.
giving me his highlight tapes, and what all that type of stuff,
Hmm.
and then the second that Lutcher would happen, and that was even one of his best games.
Right, right.
Now he scored two touchdowns in that game, but it really wasn't his gaudy type of his numbers wise performance, but that win put his team on the map, and it also allowed him to be in the spotlight. And then they also have a running back, Chase Jacobs, who
A
is the
familiar last name,
yeah.
huh?
If you're not familiar with his last name, he's the nephew of Brandon Jacobs, who is actually went to Assumption
Yep.
back in the day
Yep, he
and was
did.
a two-time Super Bowl winner, two-time Super Bowl champ for the
Hmm.
New York
Yep.
Giants, 2007, 2011.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good genes right there.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Assumption Mustangs there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go, and just in case y'all wondering, great representation from the Mustangs crowd. The first vote that got over 1,000. So we got
Mm-hmm.
1325 is the correct number. And then just in case if the Delta Charter community was wondering about their guy, 456 votes. So we go into our top three as we're flying by this list, and we're going to go to really East Ascension. We go to Gonzalez for our number three guy, and it's Caden Gotro. So Caden Gotro, it's been kind of a tough season for East Ascension. That's because they're playing the whole NFL this year. That's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
it makes a
Oh
difference.
man. Oh
Um,
man.
but 8 for 12, 250 yards. How about that for a percentage? Five of those eight completions went for touchdowns in the 48-9 victory over Live Oak. So Caden Gotro, very talented quarterback from East Ascension, really good athlete, got himself his best performance as a Spartan with a big showing against the Eagles from Live Oak.
Yeah, I think East Ascension. It's like, wait, why is East Ascension this bad? It's like, well, I mean, they played literally the Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, and Ohio State and Michigan
They did.
in the beginning of the schedule. So, I mean, that's a really tough schedule. Now, it's good when it comes to playoff time. It's good for seeding because you played some really tough teams, and the district was really tough as well
Hmm.
this season, as well as one of the more underrated districts in terms of competition in the state this year. But 8 for 12 for 250 yards, and I believe what it was
Five touchdowns.
five touchdowns. I mean, five of his completions were touchdowns. That's a pretty incredible performance against a pretty decent and gritty team like Live Oak.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Darnell Lee and the Spartan Nation coming in with 1,421 votes. So shout out to y'all guys. And then there's actually, just like last week, there's a big separation from two to three and on
Oh yeah.
because the first two, really shout out to both these two programs we're going to be talking about. But the first one was probably a team that we didn't really expect really having this many votes. But coming in at number two, we're going to give a shout out to Hamilton Christian, now the Lake Charles area, because your guy, Sammy Knight, is your number two player of the week for Gridiron football. He plays quarterback for Hamilton Christian, a small 1A school, but I tell you, I think the whole community went out and voted at Hamilton Christian. 8 for 12, 194 yards, four touchdowns through the air. And guess what, Grant? Another eight touchdown performance. He also had 12 carries for 256 yards and four touchdowns. Eight touchdown performance, Sammy Knight. He's also been invited to play in our Gridiron Football All American Bowl game. So he is a great athlete. I think 6'3", 6'4", and he can do a lot of things with the football in his hands. And you see another, like you talked about Reese Turner, maybe another diamond in the rough when we talk about Louisiana.
Oh yeah, pure diamond. I think not a whole lot of people know who Hamilton Christian is. Not
Hmm.
only just and where Hamilton Christian is. I was talking to Andy yesterday. It's like, no, I think Hamilton Christian is kind of like it's kind of in the swamps out in Oklahoma. And I was like, I think it's in Lake Charles area. And
Yeah,
I
I
looked
think
up, it
so.
was in Lake Charles.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
nobody really knows who the school is or where the school is and who the school is. But I think with performances like this, you finally get to realize who the Hamilton Christian Warriors are about. I mean, 54-44 win over Eastbow Regard High School, down in the Lake Charles area. I mean, 194 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, he only completed 8 passes for out of those 12 pass
He made him
attempts,
count.
but half of those were touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then also 256 yards and 4 touchdowns on 12 carries.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty ridiculous stat line coming from Sammy Knight, the quarterback of the Hamilton Christian.
Yeah, playmaker is
Oh yeah,
what he
oh yeah.
really is, and really shout out to. I told about the fans coming out and supporting. Well, Hamilton Christian, give yourself a round of applause for this, a valiant effort, because y'all wrapped up 11,764 votes. That's not a typo. 11,000 votes for Hamilton Christian. Like I said, I think the whole Lake Charles community came and supported this
Mm-hmm.
young man. But the one school and the one team, and I know you're going to give a shout out because you text me. I think actually I woke up this morning. I think the first text was from you, and I was like, 2 words and 2 words only.
Seventh Ward.
They represented, and
Yeah.
this was actually at a game that you saw personally. You
Mm-hmm.
were there. You saw this on a Thursday, and it was a huge game too. We're talking about okay, when we're going to get a defensive player. We had a defensive player of the week last year. We haven't had one this year, but guess what? We finally get one this year, and it's Peyton McFarland, defensive end slash outside linebacker from Donna 35. Had 11 total tackles, 6 TFLs, 4 sacks, and a 31-0 win over Frederick Douglass. And that's another uh, really cherry on top. They did it in the shutout, and he was a big reason why they're able to get the shutout, and they also clinched district. So pretty much that was the perfect game for everybody around for McDonald 35.
Right. And one of the biggest reasons why I came over here was the ability to cover the high school football in because there's a lot of hidden gems in that area, and they're all great. They're always really grateful when we go down there and cover the games. And I'm from the New Orleans area, and the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I say Seventh Ward so enthusiastically is because I'm from there. I grew up there. I did a lot of moving around because of my dad's job, but
Right.
I always claimed the Seventh Ward as my home. The McDonald 35 is one of the historically black high schools in New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans. I think it was the first black high school in New
I
Orleans.
think so.
I think I'm right about that. And it's right smack there in the middle of the Seventh Ward. So it means a lot to me seeing a high school a player representative from the area I grew up in, from McDonald 35, and I actually hit up Peyton. Like, hey, what were your stats of the? Because the team picked up 10 sacks
Right.
in that
Right.
game. They picked up 10 sacks, and I know he was flying around. And he's like, well, I had 4 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. I'm like, okay, how many total tackles did you have? He's like, well, I had 5. I was like, okay, you do realize you had 5 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. And it's like, yeah, you're probably gonna be a nominee for Player of
Yeah.
the Week, and he actually won it.
Yeah, he did.
We let the people decide, and they said
I
he's
agree
the
with you.
winner. Yeah, and I think you mentioned this to me earlier.
Hmm.
His mom and his aunt
Yeah.
called you earlier,
Yep.
and I think you told me his mom was crying, and that
Yeah.
that that, that was awesome.
That was awesome.
That's awesome because and that's why I like going down to New Orleans and covering some of these games. But then also it means a lot to us because we love to cover guys who we think should be getting looks at. Like we said that about Reese Turner
Hmm.
Assumption. You say the same thing about Peyton McFarland. I think you impacted
Yeah.
him.
I
Yeah,
actually
and I told you that, and
a
that
lot of good news in that phone call,
yeah,
Grant.
I told him about it because I think even though if you looked at his highlights, he was playing down on the line with his hand on the ground. I think he is an outside linebacker when he's in college.
Hmm.
He's got a few Division 1 offers as well.
Right.
So I think he'll be more of an outside linebacker because he's about 6'1", 6'2",
Sure.
210,
Kind of
215.
a tweener in
Yeah,
between.
exactly. And I think he's just going to be a dangerous pass rusher. And I think he can fly out the field. And I think he'll be developed. I think when he gets to college, he'll be I think it'll be a lot bigger. I think it'll probably be about 6'1", 6'2",
Yeah,
225, 230 when he gets to college. Because that's what happens when you get into college. You get a little bit
right.
bigger. But I think he's a great player for McDonald 35. McDonald 35 has a lot of talent on that team, and
Hmm.
don't including Ja'Kai Andrews, who's only a
Right,
sophomore.
right.
So a lot of talent out of the New Orleans area, and also 35. And Greg Dax is a great coach.
Shout out Frank Dags, winning
Yeah,
the district
yeah,
championship. That's
one.
awesome.
He's one of the best developers of
Hmm.
talent in the New Orleans area. So I want to give a shout out to the whole McDonald 35 community, the 7th Ward, and the city of New Orleans. He
Yeah.
is the first. I think he is the first. Um, the first player of the week from the city of New Orleans. So
Yeah, I gotta go
that's
back and
awesome.
check. I mean, maybe last year, but
But
that's
in
not
terms,
no.
in terms of this
Oh
year,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know he is the first player of the week from the city of New Orleans, and
Hmm.
that's awesome. Considering the fact that I am New Orleans native, I'm from the hometown, so the fact that we got a New Orleans native
That's awesome.
as the player of the week, it's a truly awesome feeling.
Yeah, it really is. Shout out to McDonald 35, Frank Dags. I know he was there for a long time with Wayne Reese too,
Mm-hmm.
coaching the late Wayne Reese. So
Legend.
legendary name in the New Orleans area. So great to see him get that really that huge district championship
Yeah.
for him as well. So I'm so happy for Coach Dags and the Ron Eagles.
7 Ward.
Yep, and that's the Ron Eagles, right? That's that
The
whole
Ron
thing. Oh,
Eagles.
yeah, not the
Top
yep,
top five,
yep,
top five
yep.
nickname.
Uh huh.
It's just unique. It's just like this unique Ron.
The Ron
Nobody
Eagles.
knows what a Ron Eagle is, but it works.
I think there was something about like
It's like a
it was the Iron Eagles, I think, and I think the eye came down. It
maybe
was
I don't know.
they kept it with
I gotta
the
look better.
Ron Eagles.
I think Coach Dax played a small role at the whole when we had run the Player of the Week show where we interview the player
Oh
and his
yeah,
head coach. So I think we'll explain that pretty well.
oh yeah, I think we will, and he'll be definitely getting a lot of stuff. So Peyton, expect an interview from us tomorrow, and then obviously you're going to be pinned on top of her social media for a whole week as well. And then Peyton, all right, talk to your mom and your aunt. They both called me today, so expect a Gridiron Football All American Bowl game invite. We would love to see what your talents can do when we have the game at the end of the year in Baton Rouge. So 17,000 votes from Madonna 35.
Mhm.
That was pretty much half of the votes really went
Yeah.
to the seventh ward, so that was unbelievable.
7th Ward.
Seventh ward represent. Now we're going to pretty much recap this briefly, give our just our final thoughts on it. Just what do you think of the list, Grant? Do you pretty much agree with the people out there?
Oh yeah, I think the list was pretty good. I think it was a lot better than last week. The only thing the only thing that was kind of disappointing is the Catholic community. Uh,
Yeah, I'm a
yeah,
little disappointed.
so I know Jason's a little bit disappointed, and we're not bashing y'all. I think y'all are a great community.
Oh
We love
yeah,
your school, and we love that about the Catholic community. I'm not part of the Catholic community, but I
I
know
still got to support my Bears.
they're
So
and they're very important piece of the Batters
oh
community.
yeah.
But as much as they want to say, "Oh, we went here and we love our school, we love our team," and they make it known, they didn't show out, and I think that was the most disappointing thing. But yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of heat for that
Yeah,
now.
I might protect you a little bit when we
Oh
both
God,
go
yeah,
into
yeah. I'm saying what Jason can't say,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Jason is a part of.
yeah. But shout out to the Catholic High Bears. We both of us will be
And
there.
shout out to Hudson for putting
Yeah,
that in
yeah,
because
yeah,
that was a
absolutely.
great performance. Like, he should have been a lot higher.
Yeah, but yeah, we're gonna leave it up to the people, and that's what's so fun about it. And I think it puts a lot of pressure off us too to decide this as well.
Yeah,
As well, it's a whole fun part of it. Grant, Grant, always a pleasure having being you on the show with you.
sir.
It's been always a fun time talking ball with you, and then I hope you all enjoyed the show. Go back to our website. Grant will actually have not only the top 10, but we have honorable mentions as well. Maybe not as much as the last week, but we still have a pretty good list for you. And then we're going to still continue to do this in the playoffs as we go into the playoffs. And I know some of the other states are in
I'm
playoffs right
really
now.
excited for next week's Player of the Week announcement because I think we're gonna have a lot of great
Hmm.
performances. This is the biggest week in the high school football in Louisiana currently in the regular season because of a lot of the. We have so many great games. I think we have like 15 like district either big time district title games
Hmm.
or like non-district games. I mean, it's
Right.
a pretty incredible slate of games this weekend here in Louisiana. But then also all across the country. I think a lot, I think Texas, I think they started doing
They
the
just started
playoffs.
playoffs.
Alabama, Mississippi. There's a lot of great football going around right now around the country. So I think we're going to see a lot more nominees next weekend. and then also I think a lot more votes. I feel like there would have
Yeah.
been a lot more votes if it wasn't for
It was
Halloween.
Halloween, kind of threw things off too, and
Yeah,
I think it was a little bit. We had a couple hours less
right.
than last
And it
week.
still got 30,000 votes, which is
Yeah,
pretty incredible,
it's still
man.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So keep it coming, guys. Make sure you keep it being involved. Let your voice heard. Have your First Amendment rights right there. So you're an American citizen. Take advantage
Go
of it. Go
vote.
and vote.
You have no
It's your
excuse.
duty.
Go vote.
It's your duty. But congratulations to McDonald 35. Congratulations to Peyton McFarland. And then, yeah, we'll wrap it up. We'll see y'all next week on our week 10. We'll just kind of go off of Louisiana because we're based in Louisiana week wise, but we'll have another week. So this is going to be our week 10 player of the week next week for Grant Sastry. I'm Jay Lejeune saying so long, and we'll see y'all next time on another edition of the Gridiron Football Player of the Week show.